Hey everybody, what's going on? We're going to be talking about the top 10 Nat 4s for the Boxing Club dungeon today, and I'm going to be referencing the tier list I'm making with the community to do so. There actually happen to be 10 S tier Nat 4s right now, so it kind of worked out nicely for a nice round title for the video. So we're going to go through and take a look at them and talk about how they got their S tier rating. If you would like to be a part of the conversation or the process of how all the units in the game are getting rated, you can follow me at twitch.tv/jgigs, where I go live a few times a week now. And we just kind of work on it. We discuss all the units in the game, look at their skills, figure out how we think they would do. And over time, it'll adjust as people get more familiar with all the content and all the units in the game. But beyond that, there's also a link below to my Discord if you would like to join. And I have a link below now to the official Discord if you would like to jump in there. It's a great place to be, especially if you're on iOS and are having trouble redeeming promo codes. They have a code section where you can just click the link for every code on iOS and get it easily. So probably not a bad idea to hop in there and keep up with the codes as they release in the news and stuff. But yeah, let's go ahead and pull up the tier list that we're working on and talk a little bit about what we got going on. We'll just start at the top here and work our way down. So you see we've got all of the units. We have Nat 3, Nat 4, Nat 5 tabs. And I'm just going to eventually have all the content in the game go across the horizontal rows and give all the ratings for all the units in each individual content. So as things develop, it'll be pretty comprehensive. Let's start with the Light Sky Police. She is our first S tier. I am going to be including light units in this today. The Light Sky Police. On the A3, attacks an enemy 4 to 7 times. Each attack absorb action bar by 10%. The attack count increases according to your speed, so the faster you get her, the more times she'll hit. And damage is based on her defense, which means you get to scale up her damage as well as her survivability, okay? Here, she's got defense up and immunity for herself, which is going to really help her manage that defense down coming from the boss, right? And then on the A1, we have a defense down, and she has a chance to counterattack, which means that more than likely she will permanently keep a defense down up for the team. So she's very straightforward. It's very simple. But the turn meter knockback is going to reduce the amount of turns that the boss gets. She's keeping a defense down up, and she kind of supports herself. So she's just a really good unit, we thought, for a Boxing Club. S tier seemed pretty reasonable, and a few people in the chat have her and were like, she's an S tier. She's ridiculous for Boxing Club. So she's going to be our first S tier on the list, okay? Next up, we have the Tree Ant Cannon, who is a ridiculous unit. We were reading these skills going crazy, all right? Crit rate lead, which is pretty nice. AoE buff strip. Strips buff off all enemies. It will not glance and gains an extra turn after using it. So, won't glance. That's a big key there, because this dungeon has a glance mechanic, right? And you're more likely to glance if you don't have a lot of buffs. And when you glance, the boss gets to counterattack you, and oftentimes he'll freeze you with that counterattack. It's annoying, even on tree units. It's very annoying. So the fact that this won't glance is really nice. This is if you have enough accuracy on him, it's all but a guaranteed buff strip on the boss. So you're going to get that attack buff off. You're not going to glance and pull a counterattack, and you're going to get an extra turn. And with that extra turn, you'll be able to come in right behind it and give everybody attack up and crit up, which is going to increase your damage output. And then here, he's got a chance to give himself extra turns and cycle. So he's just kind of his own fuel. He turn cycles himself. Not going to glance on the A3. Keeps the attack buff down. Buffs the damage on your champs. I think a very, very easy unit to have. Probably a very easy unit to keep alive. He's the right affinity. But we thought he was pretty fantastic for Boxing Club. Moving right along, we've got Water Archon. Guild Battle Lead, but that's not really, obviously, applicable. The passive, when attacking, steal 1 buff from the enemy and apply Incurable for 2 turns to an enemy without buffs. And then for each buff possessed, attack power increases. So again, keeping that attack buff off the boss, you'll kind of see a theme here, is very important. It's very nice to get that attack buff off because it greatly reduces the damage that you're going to take. And considering that, depending on your team, you might have that defense down up a lot when you take the hit, it's really nice to be able to reliably get that attack buff down. So, nice that he does this every time he attacks regardless. On the A2, we've got a random 3 hitter with a defense down. it always counts as attribute advantage. So it'll have the extra crit rate and the extra damage, right? It's on a 2-turn cooldown. So while it's a random hitter and you can't necessarily target the boss, 1, it's on a 2-turn cooldown. 2, there are only 3 enemies. I would say more often than not, he'll land one of them on the boss and get this defense down up, okay? And again, it's only on a 2-turn cooldown. He'll be getting this off probably at least twice per giant turn. I'm sorry, per boxing club boss turn. And I think it'll be fine, right? It's not going to be the most reliable source of damage, but I do think he'll help you keep a defense down up. And then here we've got a 3-hitter on the A1 with a slow, which again just reduces the amount of turns that the boss takes, which is always a good thing, okay? So I think a very, very solid unit. Also, it's worth noting we have him as an S tier for heavy metal as well. Being able to strip buffs reliably is huge. Turn meter knockback and the slow is also nice. All of the same things still apply, except stripping buffs is more important in heavy metal, and he's got the right element, right? So he's going in with advantage. So pretty solid unit for those 2 dungeons, actually. Next up, one that we all know and love, or hate if you don't have, the tree bookworm. It's all pretty self-explanatory. He's got the guild war attack lead, which it doesn't matter here. The A3 is really the big claim to fame for this. He's going to help you clear waves much faster than if you're running a strictly safe team. But if you can afford the slot, like if you can keep him alive and afford the slot on the team, this A3 is going to help you get to the boss much quicker, which is going to speed your runs up pretty significantly. He's also got the AoE slow and attack down, which is great literally everywhere. And then the incurable on the A1, which doesn't necessarily need to happen, but it's there. And very solid damage, right? Just a very solid damage heavy unit. He's very popular. A lot of people are re-rolling for him specifically. And I am saying him. I've seen a lot of confusion about whether or not we think this is a him or a her. The more I'm looking, I think it's a him. We got the bowl cut. We got the tie. It just looks like a little dude. Just looks like a little school dude to me. So I'm saying him. I'm sticking with him until probably the devs tell me otherwise. So yeah, easy S tier, right? Easy S tier. One of the most popular Nat 4s in the game. One of the 2 that most people are trying to re-roll for constantly. Definitely worthy of the S tier. One you might not have been aware of, however, and the next one on the list is the light bookworm. And he is interesting. So let's start with the A3. Omniscient. Removes all debuffs on all allies and recovers their HP by 36%. Also, revive all dead allies with 30% HP and then grant 1 stack of Nullify. Nullify is a buff that sits, and the first time somebody tries to put a debuff on you, it blocks it, and then it goes away. So it's not like a block debuff that sits there and blocks every incoming debuff, but it sits there, and the next time someone puts a debuff on you, it blocks it. So the tower, more than likely that's trying to put a defense down on you, will get blocked when this goes up. So pretty nice. Full cleanse, full heal, and if you need it, the revive. That's a nutty A3. That is killer for a support unit, especially in the early game dungeons where maybe you're having trouble keeping your units alive. That's really, really nice. Here we've got restore health to all allies and grant 1 stack of Foresight. Foresight is the equivalent of the blind debuff. So if you put a blind debuff on the boss, he's more likely to glance. A Foresight buff on yourself means you're more likely to be glanced. So it's just kind of nice because it's not something that requires accuracy to put on an enemy. You put it on yourself, and then you're more likely to be glanced, okay? And then he gains an extra turn, which helps him cycle back around to this cleanse, heal / revive, should you find yourself needing it. So you've got 2 pretty solid heals. You've got some great support buffs, and you've got a revive as insurance if you need it. And to boot, he's got the defense down on the A1, which if you know me, if you've been watching my content for over the years, you know I'm always a big fan of an A1 defense down. And the fact that this is an 80% chance on an A1, that's a very high chance for an A1 defense down. This is an incredible unit. If you've managed to pull Light Bookworm, congratulations. I think he is one of the better Nat 4s for like PvE progression that you could pull. I think he's going to make, if you've pulled him early on, he makes your life so much easier. Just an absolutely ridiculous unit, okay? Moving right along, another very, very popular unit that I'm sure you all are going to be familiar with, the tree Ninrat. This is perhaps the most popular unit everybody's re-rolling for. He is part of the boxing club speed team that you run with the Ghost Pirate. And so let's talk very quickly about him. He has the speed lead, which is very handy, right? And it's a tree speed lead, so particularly for boxing club, it's probably going to apply to your whole team. You're probably running a full tree team, unless you have light bookworm, and then maybe you're running one that's not. But on the A3, we got the 6-hitter. When he crits, and this is important. I see a lot of people missing this. He has to crit and have the accuracy, okay? So that's very important. Applies 1 turn of damage over time and increase your action bar. Damage increase based on your speed. So he's going to hit 6 times. Every time he hits, there's going to be a roll for whether or not he crits. And if he crits, then it's going to roll the accuracy. And if both of those checks pass, then the damage over turn goes up, okay? So don't just load up accuracy on this guy and think it's going to work. And don't just load up crit rate on this guy and think it's going to work. He is going to need both. So it's a little bit stat intensive. It's going to be kind of difficult for you to do very early on. If you have decent support, maybe you've got a steel wings on the team and you've got the defense buff, you might be able to get away with an accuracy gear in slot 6 to help you with some of that, and maybe crit rate in slot 4. But then again, you're going to really need some HP in your substats to keep this guy alive. So it could be a little tricky to build, but I want to make sure that we note that. You need crit rate and accuracy to get these dots up. And if you only have one or the other, you might as well not run him in the team, okay? Because that's what he's there to do. On the A2, we've got the slow with the turn meter decrease, which is very nice. And then on the A1, we've got some extra dots. So just a dot machine, right? Dot machine with some nice turn meter knockback and a slow helps you run laps around the boss when this goes up. I mean, solid unit. There's a reason everybody's re-rolling for him. There's a reason he's part of the speed team. He's pretty dope. Pretty dope, man. I'm also a big fan because I love rats. So GG. I'm glad that a rat is one of the coolest Nat 4s in the game right now. Let's move it right along to the Tree Ghost Captain. Again, part of the combo that people are running with the Tree Ninrat, so we'll talk very briefly about him. You get him for free after you clear Stage 8 of Boxing Club, if I'm not mistaken. So if you have Ninrat and you don't have Ghost Captain and you're working your way through, just know he's up there. If you haven't scrolled down and seen that yet, you will get him for free, so don't sweat it too much. He has the defense lead, which is handy. The big claim to fame here is the attacks all enemies and extend all debuffs on the target by 2 turns, and then activate damage over time and bombs. And I actually didn't know until very recently that he detonated bombs as well, which is crazy. So this is why the combo with the Ninrat works, right? The Ninrat goes first, he loads up all the stacks of dots, and then the Ghost Captain comes in behind him, extends them all by 2 turns, and then detonates them. It kind of just blows the boss up, right? It's kind of a boss killing type thing, and they both have the right element for Boxing Club, so it just kind of works, right? Here, he will attack an enemy or an ally. If he attacks an ally, they get a turn. If he attacks an enemy, he resets their attack bar. Pretty nice. So perhaps worth building him with not much damage, just in case he starts hitting your teammates when you have him on random. That could be kind of annoying if he hits real hard. And then here we have an AoE with a little bit of splash damage and chance to throw up some dots as well. So he could contribute to the amount of dots that he's exploding maybe on the 2nd or 3rd turn of the fight. So pretty cool unit. Usable even if you don't have Ninrat. I want to make sure that's clear. It's not like he's contingent on having Ninrat on the team to be useful. He could also be very good. So when you get this dude at stage 8, he might be worth putting in the team and playing around with a little bit, because there's other champs that can put up damage over time. It's not just Ninrat. Ninrat just loads up 6 with 1 turn, so it's like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. But there's other units that could work, right? Next up, the Light Ghost Captain, another very interesting unit. So let's talk about him. Resistance lead, which don't really care too much about that. Mirage, when other ally is attacked, there's a 20% chance to cause the attack to glance. Right there alone, you can see why that would be so handy for Boxing Club, right? This effect does not stack. If an enemy lands a glancing hit, counterattack the enemy. Additionally, after attacking, recover HP to the ally with the lowest HP. So he's going to increase the likelihood that allies receive a glancing hit. When they receive a glancing hit, I'm sorry, did I say allies? He's going to increase the chance that allies receive a glancing hit And when that happens, with no cooldown, he's going to counterattack with his A1 and do basically AoE damage, right? He's going to hit an initial target, but then it's going to do some splash damage that is still pretty nice. And I'm told this will proc something like a stun set on the AoE. So there's potential, I'm told, again, I have not been able to test this, but I'm told that if you have a stun set on him or anything that's going to put up any kind of debuff or anything, that it will have an AoE effect, potentially. So that could be very disgusting. And then on the A2, same thing, right? Attacks an ally to give him a turn, attacks an enemy to deplete the turn meter. So very straightforward, very simple, but the extra chance for somebody to get glanced and then for him to counterattack, hit them, and then also heal the ally with the lowest HP every single time it happens. It's very good support. That's a lot of passive healing. 18% is not a chump heal for a passive heal that's going to be proccing several times per enemy turns. You know what I mean? That's going to be pretty nice. Much in the same vein of like Bookworm. He's not necessarily going to kill the boss any faster for you, but he's going to make your life so much easier in the dungeon if you're earlier in the game, okay? Moving right along, we have another light unit, and it is... Who is that? Is that Annihilator? It is. So, we have the light teammates get the crit rate lead. We have when an ally other than yourself is attacked, another counterattacker, attacking 3 times and applying dots for 1 turn with each attack. So every time the boss hits somebody, he will counterattack and put up 3 dots. Gross. Here we have an AoE blind, which increases the enemy's chance to glance, and dots. And cooldown reduction on an AoE scale. So nice for the waves, nice for the boss, nice everywhere. And then extra dots. 3 turn dots on the A1. It also ignores buffs. So you can put dots up on the heavy metal boss with this unit as well, because he's not the wrong affinity and he ignores buffs. So the immunity won't matter. He'll still be able to put up the dots. So you again, the A1 puts up dots on its own, but you also counterattack every time an ally gets attacked. And there's no cooldown, which is crazy. So you're looking at potentially 4 dots every time somebody gets hit, on top of what he does on his turn. AoE dots here. Ridiculous. Ridiculous unit. That's a ridiculous unit, dude. And then last, and absolutely, certainly not least, actually perhaps most, I think so far the best Nat 4 we've looked at in the game. If you've pulled the Light Wisp Catcher, congratulations. He is the only one to have S's across the first 4 categories. Campaign Farmer, Classic Arena, Boxing Club, and Heavy Metal, he's S tier across the board. This is a ridiculous unit. So again, if you've got him, congratulations. We have an attack lead in dungeons, which is very handy. It's a pretty beefy attack lead too. We have an AoE defense down for 3 turns with 30% turn meter knockback. And he does damage based on his own max HP. And it can't be resisted. So when he does this skill, unless they have immunity, he is going to put an AoE defense down up, and he is going to knock the turn meter back 30%, and it's on a 4-turn cooldown. On the A2, we have another AoE, recover HP to 20% of the damage dealt, which will be decent. It will be decent damage because it's an AoE. For targets with a lower level than yourself, deal an additional 2% damage per level difference. So when you're farming campaign, that's one of the reasons he got such a good score in campaign. He'll be doing some bonus damage there too. So he's going to be impossible for them to kill in campaign waves. Honestly, any waves in general. And he's setting himself up to do a lot of damage. He's got double AoE. And then here he's got turn meter knockback on the A1. So when he's on cooldown, he can still do something pretty impactful. Ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That A3 is crazy. So again, if you have him, congratulations. He is very good. Also, to boot, you load up his HP while also increasing the amount of damage he does. HP scaling damage dealer with an irresistible 3-turn AoE defense down and turn meter knockback. He's going to be great in Lost Tunnel. He's going to be good for it. Quite a bit of content in the game. At least at this stage, we've reviewed all the Nat 4s in the game. At this stage, he kind of seems by far the best across the board. He's ridiculous. So keep an eye out for him when you're pulling your Twilights. And that's going to do it. I believe that was 10. If it wasn't, I guess let me know. But yeah, let me know what you think. Are there any units that you think might be getting slept on? There were quite a few A tiers that we didn't talk about, right? A and B tiers that are still very usable. But I thought today we would just go through and talk about all the S tiers. And I think it happened to end up being 10, unless I overlooked one initially and we did 9 or 11, in which case, I don't know what to tell you. But that's it. I do hope it was helpful. Again, very interested to hear about your experience with any of the units that I haven't talked about. If you do have any of the units that I did talk about, I'd be interested in feedback on those as well. And again, be sure to hop in the Discords and get plugged in and follow me on Twitch if you want to hang out while we work on the tier list. That's going to do it for me. I hope it was helpful or interesting at the very least. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you in the next one.